go. Hey guys, welcome to the PRCA Fuse podcast. And this week I'm joined by Bill Beutler from Beutler Ink, who has a fascinating company which specializes in Wikipedia. Now, this is super important because in the age of AI, there's been a lot of talk in the PR world about the role that earned media plays in AI queries and responses. But there's a whole other world out there that hasn't been talked about, and that's the world of Wikipedia, Reddit, and YouTube, all of which are super important in contributing to those responses that ChatGPT and Gemini throw up against queries. So we talk about that in this conversation. We talk about some of the mistakes that firms have made, particularly the North Face, Burger King, and Bell Pottinger. We also talk about, he gives us some advice on how to go about suggesting corrections to Wikipedia pages. And we also talk about predictions for the future, including the day when ChatGPT serves ads. I learned a lot from this conversation. I hope you do too. Enjoy. Hey, Bill. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me here, man. It's good to be here.
Well, I'm looking forward to this. First of all, could you tell our listeners a little bit about you and your company?
Sure thing. So I am a middle-aged American man with a, a wife, a son, and another on the way, and a mortgage. And I run a business called Beutler Ink, which I started 15 years ago out of my apartment in Washington, D.C., where I had previously been a journalist in my first few years out of college, and then had gone into consulting on the web, but also for politics and a bit for business. And this was during the Web 2.0 boom of Facebook and Twitter, and everybody wanted to be a social media guru. And that thought there was a lot of snake oil and all that. And meanwhile, I was getting interested in this little thing called Wikipedia. It had been around for maybe 5 or 6 years at the time that I first started poking around at it, and kind of realized that this was actually there might be a career in this. There certainly would be a service for brands because Wikipedia was starting to have more and more ability to influence the public reputations of all the subjects that it covers. But if you are like a prominent individual, or if you are a business, there's conflict of interest rules around Wikipedia content that says, if you're financially connected, if you stand to gain by what this page says, if it says something nicer than it says now, then we ask you just not make any direct edits to the page. And that seemed to me like couldn't be the end of the story. Saying just hands off abstinence doesn't work. And so what I did was created a service for brands to interact with Wikipedia editors, really meaning that I would just go create better content and go have conversations with editors about my brands and disclosing who my connections were and kind of working things out on the talk page and getting changes made. Started to work. Started to do a little bit more of that. I did it some for my employer at the time, but there was it was a value add for them. It wasn't all that serious. Small potatoes for them. For me, I was like, I'm going to quit my job and see if I can run at this as hard as I can. And 15 years later, my company is almost 20 people, and we do more than Wikipedia, but it's by far the most unique thing that we do. And here in this era of AI search, kind of remaking the way that people find information, it's also giving me more opportunities to talk to people like you, Adrian, about Wikipedia, how it works, what it's good for, and it's kind of all kinds of. I love the fact that everybody uses it, but nobody really knows how it works, and that's what I get to do.
And so I've been in PR for over 20 years, and you're the first firm I've come across that specializes in Wikipedia. Before we get into some of the things around how the rules are changing and how the influence of Wikipedia is changing, could
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit more? And you started to tell us a bit more about, tell us a little bit more about why it's such a minefield for businesses and communicators. And if you have any, do you have any examples of companies where they've got it wrong?
Sure. It's almost the challenge is picking one out of the many, many who have, you know, mess things up, trying to do the right thing sometimes. But
Mm.
why is it such a minefield? I guess it'd be because it is both very influential. Wikipedia as a website, as a platform, highly visible for many years at the top of Google search results for most subjects, as it still is. That's really where the basis of my business begins. Nobody would care if it didn't show up at the top of every search result. And the other part about it is that you can't control it. If you are the brand, for the most part, one reason why there's a very, very small number of firms that do that we do what we do, um, is a lot of brands and a lot of PR marketing agencies. They've seen some of the low lights. They've seen some of the headlines of companies who have got it wrong, and just decided, you know what, that's too risky for us. We know, and they know that Wikipedia is run by this community of volunteers who are very protective of the value of the product that they've built. And they would probably bristle at the word product. It's an encyclopedia. It is a learning platform. Wikipedia is an educational NGO, but you kind of most of the time don't think of it in those terms. It truly is a global organization, but it's also just a group of individuals who care a lot about the material they're editing on, and so don't cross them. It could cost your reputation. And so, man, most just kind of like we're like, I don't know, this is too hard. I'm gonna step back. And when it becomes a real crisis, then they will seek out someone like my firm to try to help solve the problem.
Great. And have you got examples of where
Mm.
those companies have got it wrong in the past, where you haven't been involved, obviously?
Well, there's a couple of really high-profile ones. I would say that a lot of the more quotidian foul-ups are just a company doesn't like a piece of information they see on the page, and they deputize lower-ranking member of their comms staff to create an account and to start go editing. And if it's like one or two edits, if it's pretty minor, that might be all there is to it. But if Wikipedia editors are pretty good at sussing out when somebody is there on behalf of a brand doing PR and not just expanding the world's access to information. Some of the like two of the more high profile ones are a little like more ambitious. One would be the outdoor clothing company, the North Face. A number of years ago, they got real clever and they went through Wikipedia replacing photos of people hiking at famous monuments, mostly in North America, with photos of people doing that same thing but wearing like prominently prominently featuring North Face gear. And then they released a press release about it, how proud they were of it. And all those images came right off and they
Oh,
got a good
wow.
slap on the wrist. Burger King also once edited the introduction of the first of the Whopper page to say something like, something promotional, something marketing, like juicy burger, delicious, crisp lettuce. And the idea was that if you were to go then ask your Alexa, you know, like robot, what is a Whopper? And it would give you like the marketing version of what the Whopper is. Somebody thought it was a brilliant idea. It crashed and burned pretty much on impact. But yeah, there's lots of examples though, just of like any organization trying to do it themselves and not knowing what the rules of the road are, both in terms of not supposed to edit yourself, but then also what kind of content does Wikipedia really want? That's a whole separate question.
Right. And we talked a little bit about these editors.
Mm.
And the risk goes both ways because these editors, like you said, they're volunteers,
Yeah.
and some of them are putting their life on the line doing this. Like you, when we last spoke, you talked about a couple of editors in Russia and Saudi facing jail time because of what they do. Could you tell us, take us to the mind of the editor and tell us about some of the risks that some of these guys carry in very more sensitive areas?
Yeah, you are not kidding. For those of us who live in Western countries that are relatively stable, if maybe sometimes less than they used to be before, it can feel like at a remove to think that editing Wikipedia could get you in trouble with the authorities. But as you note in Saudi, there I'd have to update. I believe one of these individuals may have been released in the last few months or so, but there are definitely have been two Wikipedia editors who are, if memory serves, serve in an official capacity with like the Wikimedia Foundation's chapter in the region, and I don't know the specifics of the content, but their Wikipedia editing ran afoul of the official message of the regime. This has happened, and I don't want to, focus on just one country here, because this is sort of a phenomenon that crops up in uh, even more, controlling authoritarian regimes. Russia is this whole special case, in fact, where the 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 Putin government, where the security apparatus has invested in its own like counter Wikipedia, but not just one. They actually have a couple of like splinter Wikipedias, and the head of Wikipedia's Russian chapter, I mean, you might say he defected, and he went and ran Putin's Wikipedia clone. He's still doing that. I'm sure for much better pay than he was getting as the chapter president or executive director of Wikimedia Russia. So, it is a dangerous place to be editing Wikipedia if you are in a country that is even less free than the one that I'm in has been getting lately.
Wow. And the idea that there are narratives on Wikipedia that
Hmm.
exist, and then there are narratives that people don't agree with, and they're trying to influence those. That creates a conflict, and there have been cases where Jimmy Wales, the co-founder himself of Wikipedia, has intervened. Could you tell us about some of those cases, and maybe from your own perspective in your own work, you've seen him around?
I've seen him on stage at the annual Wikimania conference. I definitely have people in common with him, but we've never crossed paths except once or twice on a Wikipedia talk page. It's kind of funny. A quarter century later, Jimmy Wales has not that much to do with Wikipedia on a day-to-day basis, and yet. The talk page that's associated with his user account remains one of the main places to go bring issues, to try to like use it as a sounding board. If Jimmy Wales smiles upon your initiative, maybe he can like maybe something can get done. And so, in his capacity as the spiritual leader of Wikipedia, if you will, he's some. Maybe we could just say mascot, because oftentimes that's sort of what he is, and I think it's fine. He's got a permanent seat on the board, but he hasn't been in charge in any meaningful sense for 2 decades. But when somebody wants to hear from Wikipedia, they want to hear from Jimmy Wales. And there's a case, I think maybe you and I talked about this in our previous conversation, that about a decade or so ago, there was a firm, notorious, certainly in the UK, Bell Pottinger, no longer exists because it did the wrong thing one too many times. But on the way to that, one of the things that it did wrong was trying to edit Wikipedia on behalf of their clients anonymously, scrubbing it, really actually whitewashing it and removing true negative information about clients in a way that's just like the classic example of what Wikipedia is afraid of happening. And so they got caught doing so by Wikipedia volunteers. And is it Lord Bell, I think, who was running it at the
Yeah,
time?
Tim Bell. Yeah.
Yeah, so he invited Jimmy Wales to the London offices to like,
Wow.
come give him a talking to, which he did. And I'll tell you what, as somebody who was watching this from the sidelines, as a consultant following the rules of engagement as Wikipedia asked us to, I was surprised to see in the months that followed, like Bell Pottinger did set up some disclosed accounts to do some proper ethical Wikipedia engagement for clients. What I understand is it was not their MO typically, and I don't know how much they ever really did. And obviously, the company no longer exists for doing even worse things. But there's an example of Jimmy Wales showing up to, you know, set the world to rights where Wikipedia is concerned.
And you've actually played a role, haven't you? Or your firm's played a role in kind of reconciliating the two worlds of Wikipedia and editors and the PR world. There was this open letter that you spearheaded with a few other PR firms. Could you tell us a little bit about this and maybe give our audience a little bit of guidance on how they should be approaching Wikipedia so they don't make the same mistakes as Bell Pottinger?
Yeah, certainly. There's two questions there. First, I'll just kind of address the open letter you mentioned. I also want to say this followed on some work that was done at the CIPR in the UK. Stephen Waddington was one person who was influential in that, but there were others as well. I'm going to forget some names that did some good work. Where like CIPR was the first PR body in the world to issue some guidelines for how PR communicators should interact with Wikipedia. And it's pretty good advice. And then I was part of a similar effort stateside. And, myself with some other digital PR consultants were just irritated by the fact that the only time Wikipedia and PR appeared in the same news story was events like Bell Pottinger. There was another famous one here in the US with a company that was then called WikiPR. They collapsed and were reborn like a phoenix and became an online reputation management company called Status Labs, which still breaks the rules on Wikipedia. I'm just going to say they're out there. You might come across them, but I've talked to their former clients. They're still breaking Wikipedia's rules. They've just gotten clever at hiding it. Anyway, WikiPR was a big scandal back around 2013. And so myself and my colleagues pulled together and were like, can we do this roundtable meeting of Wikipedia editors and PR folks, and like, can we see that actually there is shared interest, like in having Wikipedia articles be up to date, accurate, well rounded, not too far in the weeds, just a useful guide to the brands. Not necessarily warts and all, but also covering the highlights and the lowlights. And, we got these editors together with the PR executives. And yeah, they were surprised that they were not totally at odds. And so this group collaborated on an open letter from the agencies. And the agencies were also very interested in not personally apologizing for anything that the individuals involved had not done. And they worked for some very large companies. Who knows what their other colleagues may have done. So they didn't want to issue an apology to Wikipedia, but just to say, we acknowledge that our industry has not always got you right. We want to give good advice. We want to follow the rules and help our clients and colleagues do the same. That was the open letter. And it was signed on to at the outset by 8 of the top 10 global PR firms, plus my own much smaller firm. It was also in that list. Nice place to be for sure. And it also happened to come out like a week before the Wikimedia Foundation itself issued its most detailed guidance on the proper protocols for paid contributions. Specifically, they introduced a paid contributions disclosure, which was a big part of what WikiPR at the time had totally failed to do and what Status Labs and a few other prominent bad actors still do today. It's really unfortunate that it's just there's not a lot of great information around Wikipedia consulting. It's such a small niche thing that it is not that difficult for unscrupulous consultants or contractors to sell their clients a line because it's easier for them to just go in and edit anonymously than it is to kind of do things the proper way, which slows things down. And well, now I'm going to get into the second part of your question. What is the right thing to do? So whether you are working at an agency or whether you're working at a brand, you're going to have a conflict of interest with the the brand, the company, the organization, or the person that you are seeking to influence Wikipedia about. And you acknowledge that, and it's not the end of the world. It does mean, though, that Wikipedia editors are going to be cautious about what you want to do with a page. And so you should appoint one person from your organization to be the point of contact to the Wikipedia community. You should give that account a personable name. We oftentimes will advise clients to choose first name at company name, just because it makes clear that this is an account that's controlled by one person and the disclosure is right there. So no one can ever accuse you of, trying to get away with not being fully forthcoming. and learn about the talk page, the discussion page. Every article, every Wikipedia article, and every user account has a discussion page attached to it. That's where we're invited to come raise issues, point out maybe small things. This is misspelled. That source is no longer working. That person is no longer the CEO of the company. And that's at the very basic level. Almost anybody should be able to create an account, disclose, and point out to Wikipedia editors small things here and there. When there's a much bigger issue, when the whole article is askew or it's just missing big chunks or it's way too negative, that is when folks will reach out to firms like mine, where we will help them take a much kind of more comprehensive approach to the situation.
Okay, that's really, really useful. Really, really good. And I think the the influence of Wikipedia is changing, right? As technology is changing. So you talked a little bit there at the beginning about how Wikipedia was very important for search.
Oh, yeah.
In the UK, at least, there has been a lot of conversations around how um, news and publications are influencing uh, AI and LLMs and AI queries. Talk to me about Wikipedia and its growing influence, and and also how it compares to publications. Let's say.
Excellent question. This is something that honestly we are talking about in our office. And when I say office, I mean our Slack, because we're a distributed team. We're talking about this all the time. Um, so right now, everybody's trying to figure out what are the key inputs to what the LLMs are saying about you, and what does one do about that. And so, in my own, research and evaluation, right now everybody's just kind of making their best guesses based on what we know of the training data and what we know of what the retrieval augmented searches bring up. And there's even a burgeoning industry of AI monitoring tools that are trying to kind of like put some numbers to this and help you track your position relative to other brands, for example. And one thing everybody agrees on is that Wikipedia is very important. I would say, is among the top three platforms, along with Reddit and with YouTube, as far as being platforms that themselves are vast within themselves, that have many people contributing to it, contributing genuine, you know, human experience and information and opinion. Some of them, on YouTube especially, some get paid for it, but most everybody on these platforms is there because they're getting real value out of it. And it turns out that sharing all those conversations and organizing all these articles are just hugely valuable for what the LLMs are trying to do. And
Mm,
I do think Wikipedia is number one among them. Some of the early charts show that ChatGPT in particular is especially favors Wikipedia, while Gemini and Anthropic and Perplexity, maybe lean a little more on Reddit. And Gemini, no big surprise, leans on YouTube heavily. But Wikipedia is near the top for all of these. And there really is no substitute for it. So this is sort of like where my focus is right now. Obviously Wikipedia, but Reddit and YouTube as well. Then there's the question of earned media, as you raise
mm,
publications, publisher sites. So my firm is not a PR firm per se. We don't do earned media. We happen to partner with a number of PR firms, like the folks who joined that open letter that we did a number of years ago. So we work really. It's a very symbiotic relationship there, and I was having a conversation with one of those PR executives a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Yeah, the AI search is big for us because Wikipedia is so important to it." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, no, Wikipedia is important, but what's really important is earned media." And of course, he's a guy who works at a large firm whose job it is to get earned media, right? So he's going to say that. Everybody, I like to say this is a moment where everybody is admiring their own hammers. Like the way I got the right tool for the job, let's go at it. I would say this. I do not dispute that earned media is, on the whole, more important for what the LLMs say. In fact, I've also had some conversations with folks who say that this is the comeback of the press release. Nobody wanted to read press releases for the last 25 years. Nobody ever wanted to read press releases, but they really fell out of favor when, blogging and just the internet came around. easier to see that on social media. But yeah, so people don't want to read press releases, but LLMs are totally fine reading press releases, and it's just another way for you to get your information out there, get it more consistent. I think the really savvy brand is going to make sure that they are hitting all of these points, that their earned media and their platform strategy are lining up. Owned media, of course, also is very important to it. So I would say Wikipedia is more important than any one or any cluster of publisher sites. But if you put all those publisher sites together, sure, those are going to be most leverage in one place with Wikipedia and Reddit, but you know, you don't want to overlook earned media by any stretch.
Yeah, and it's an interesting dynamic, the relationship between Wikipedia and earned media, because
Oh yeah.
Wikipedia, you were telling me, well, LLM, sorry, the relationship between LLMs and AI and earned media, because they are being trained on that data, but
Hmm.
and potentially stopping traffic from going to those publisher sites and getting that ad revenue. How do you see this playing out, and what does this mean for the world of Wikipedia?
So it is not too late to arrest the decline of online media, but it's getting late, I would say. I don't think this is going to happen. Look, we're already here. It is 2025. I remember in 2005 talking about the decline of the news media. That's about when I left journalism myself to go into what seemed like a more promising field of consulting. And it is there is this Ouroboros, that's how you pronounce it, snake eating its own tail problem, where the earned media feeds Wikipedia, and Wikipedia feeds the LLMs, and the LLMs are, uh, sucking in all the eyeballs. That's a weird analogy and a little bit mixed, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get it.
People are reading what ChatGPT says, and they're not reading Wikipedia as much. Stick a pin in that for a moment, maybe, and they're not reading the news publications, the publisher sites as much, which means they're not the eyeballs are not on the advertisements, and advertisers know that, and so the rates crash, and all of a sudden the online news websites that survived the last cull are now facing an uncertain future once again. So Wikipedia actually has not lost traffic. This is not yet for sure. Wikipedia's had very stable, even slightly growing traffic over the last few years. Now it's maybe stabilized. I read a study last year that suggested that at most generative AI was arresting Wikipedia's growth trajectory traffic wise. Still being edited as much as before, still being viewed as much as before. And the same is true of Reddit as well. I saw a presentation from the Wikimedia Foundation about this. And that's good news for now. But you can follow the logic chain of how this could deteriorate over time. That's why I say it's late, it's not over. I would love to see OpenAI and some of the others actually turn around and invest in the news media. Granted, I'm aware that OpenAI is at best break even minus the additional training they're doing on future models. So it's not like they are wildly profitable now. There's a lot of talk as of this week about there being a bubble around AI. But the cat's out of the bag. This technology is going to continue, whether these companies individually get their returns or not. So somebody needs to be thinking about not killing the golden goose. And I would say OpenAI is in a particularly good place to do that, but it's going to take some time. And the good news is there is time. It's not going to happen overnight, but you don't want to let go forever.
But so some of these media firms are making deals with
Hmm.
AI companies, right?
Oh, yeah.
So how are these deals structured? Is it that these AI companies are paying them to be allowed to train on their content? Is that how it works?
I mean, I think that's basically it. And I don't want to, I am not personally well read on the details of those, but I know that, I listened to a podcast called Hard Fork, where one of the hosts is a New York Times reporter. And every time they get to an AI segment, he has to disclose. And the New York Times is suing these companies for scraping the data. I know that Reddit has a deal with ChatGPT, and they are currently suing Anthropic, likely to try to get a similar deal for their Claude AI. And Anthropic in particular is in the middle of a big lawsuit where, and maybe more than one lawsuit, but where not only were they scraping data out of books in particular, but they like didn't pay for the books. And I feel like they really kind of were pushing the envelope a little bit to see how far they could go with that. And Anthropic succeeded in getting a judge to agree with the basic notion that an AI scraping and turning books into new works is transformative in a way that, and here I'm talking about U.S. law, so who knows how this translates elsewhere. Um, but a U.S. judge said, "Yeah, no, I understand. Like it's more like a person reading a book and then writing an essay based on what they read, rather than just being a straight up copyright violation. At least last time I tried to get ChatGPT to give me song lyrics, it'll cut itself off after about a line or two, being like, I'm not supposed to do this." So it's an evolving area that I know for sure.
Personal opinion then from you.
Okay.
Um, do you think that these AI companies should be paying Wikipedia for the data to train their models?
I wouldn't say no. I think that it's a valuable thing they're getting, right? So why not? There's some challenges here, though. One of which being that Wikipedia is, from its inception, the type of organization that it is, and the kind of like the rules that it's set for itself way back at the beginning prevented from doing what Reddit is doing. Reddit's a publicly traded for-profit company. They're striking deals and cashing in on the rights to train on their data. Wikipedia cannot make any such like requirement. It's their all their material, everything on Wikipedia that you read, all the text is released under a Creative Commons license that says as long as you give credit to where you got the information from, you can reuse it, you can remix it, and you can even use it for commercial purposes. And again, Wikipedia, educational NGO, that's what it's there for. It's not there to make money. Although those fundraising banner ads you see every Christmas time, and sometimes in the middle of the year too, they do phenomenally well. Wikipedia has an annual budget in the range of around $100 million, and most of that money is goes to overhead, and it's kind of controversial among the larger Wikipedia community because volunteer Wikipedia editors are volunteers. They're not getting paid for what they do, and they're fine with the foundation raising money to grow the mission of Wikipedia. But when there's disagreements about is this money being spent as well as it should be, and do we really need this much money for what Wikipedia should be doing, that raises some questions. So I'll end my speech here by noting that the Wikipedia Foundation has made an effort to try to um, say reach out to the AI companies and say they created a version of Wikipedia that is cleaned up, that is available, that they would like the AI companies to train on, rather than sending their bots crawling across live Wikipedia, which is putting strain on their servers. So they created this. A different data set. It's like a kind of mirror of Wikipedia, and it's in English and French. But the AI companies are under no obligation to use it. They're not paying for it anyway. Should they pay for it? Should they give back? Google has been a large donor to Wikipedia over the years, as it very much has derived immense value from Wikipedia, both cleaning up its search results and then even just pulling data out of it to go into its knowledge panels. So I honestly would be surprised if there's not some kind of arrangement like that in the coming years. Um, we will have to see.
I mean, it's so commendable Wikipedia's approach to all of this, and in many senses, the fact that it's not driven by shareholder value actually gives it better longevity because it becomes more trusted, right? I mean, you've had a
Yeah,
front row seat now on what's going on in the theatre of Wikipedia for the last 15 years.
yeah,
Tell us about what the next 15 years could look like. Well, if we were sat here 15 years from now
yeah,
and looking at the relationship between Wikipedia, businesses, AI, publishers,
right.
what's it going to look like?
Um, in 15 years, we're going to be past the singularity, right? There will be
Yeah.
money will no longer exist, and everyone will have all that they need, right? Because AI is going to do it all for us. Well, if that is not what happens, which I don't think that's going to happen, I have not spent a lot of time on this question, so I'm just going to extemporize on this and see if I produce something
Just
worthwhile.
this is great. I love it.
Yeah, so I do think Wikipedia becomes more niche. Right now it is for the last 25 years, maybe the last 20 years, it has been very prominent in the public mind and the top of Google results. It's been one of the top few places that people go to for information, along with Google. Now it's got some competition in uh, it's mostly Chat GPT. Like I think 80% of public intentional LLM use is GPT, and a lot of people use the Google AI overviews not because they mean to, just because they're already using Google. So, it has, and look, about a decade ago at the Wikimedia Foundation, there was kind of a freak out about the fact that Google was actually just like pulling information from Wikipedia, but not providing links back. And the fear was what it, this makes it harder for us to replenish our editorial community over the years. Because if you never visit Wikipedia, you can't find out that you can edit it, and editors age out and pass on, and so that's a concern. Never really came to pass. The foundation thought it needed to create its own search engine, and it did not do that. It didn't work out. Wasn't a good idea. Now I think there's a question: is Wikipedia going to create its own LLM? And I have not heard anybody over there talking about it. And granted, creating a foundational model is otherworldly expensive, even more than Wikipedia has. So I would imagine they probably pursue a model more like Perplexity, where Perplexity is not its own foundational model. It builds on top of other ones. So even though Wikipedia had such a bad experience with the search engine experiment a decade ago, someone there is talking about what kind of LLM type of approach should they take, because Wikipedia kind of missed the boat on things like short form video and other media formats that became popular after about, oh, I don't know, 2005. Right, what Wikipedia is what it was at 2 decades ago. It's sort of preserved in amber in some sense, that it represents like a version of what the World Wide Web was about in the late 1990s, which was kind of when the influences that led to its creation in 2001. So I think that the foundation has to change that. They have to either make tools available, or, and this is kind of a popular parlor room game among Wikipedia watchers, do they actually kind of break themselves up a little bit and create some smaller organizations that can focus on doing things like that? The foundation in particular, it has so much money, it's so large, and it's kind of so disconnected from the day-to-day work of regular Wikipedia editors, that I just feel like it doesn't necessarily have um, the authority in a way to tell the community what to do. The community's like, hell no to that. Meanwhile, I mean, I'm just focusing on Wikipedia here, but like, well, Google's still going to be around. I think Google's going to turn out to be a winner from AI. Uh, it does kind of question what their advertising model is going to be like, and who else is going to have advertising? ChatGPT is going to have advertising. Cherish the days today where when you log in, it's just like a nice, off-white background and simple gray text. It's Ads are coming. They've got to be. It's the best business model for any business with such a wide reach. It's inevitable. Um, I think you're going to see some of these, some of the bets on these AI companies like fail. Like I guess I would love to see the Meta bid fail. Everything about what that company's been trying to do in the last 5 years is just a joke, but it's also such a profitable one. It's not losing at this point either. So anyway, that's my kind of tour through various thoughts about what the future may hold in AI and information discoverability.
Absolutely fascinating. And you know what? Yeah, I hadn't even considered the day when ChatGPT introduces advertising, and that's terrifying. Um,
Yeah,
so, final thoughts.
sure.
What's the one thing that you would love our listeners to take away from this conversation?
Oh, interesting. I would like them to take away a sense of media savvy about how the information gets from farm to table. When you are reading the output on ChatGPT or the AI overviews, go click on those sources. Go see what you find. This sort of has an echo in a thing that Wikipedia editors have said for many years, as Wikipedia 20 years ago was kind of dismissed or derided in a way that LLMs frequently are these days. It's interesting, but you can't trust it. And even Wikipedia editors would say, well, yeah, Wikipedia is, not infallible, nor was Britannica ever completely accurate either. And of course, Wikipedia can be edited by anybody to be fixed. That's the benefit over, can't do that with a print encyclopedia. But like the line goes, my friend Andrew Lee, who's a longtime Wikipedia editor and an important guy in the movement, he says, and I know that people say this, but I heard him say it first: Wikipedia, no better place to begin your research and no worse place to end your research. Follow the links at the bottom of the page, use those references, and, learn from the original sources. The same thing is true when you're using a chatbot. Increasingly, they are providing citations for information they are answering, and go have a look at those and learn more about how the LLMs actually work so you can understand, what does a hallucination mean. I think media awareness, media savvy, media literacy is the phrase I'm looking for, has been sorely lacking, look, forever. But I feel like in this world where everything is much more intermediated by the media, and I think people have a hard time understanding what to make of it now. Social media has been a big challenge, and I think a lot of the political problems of the last decade do owe to the fact that people just, the human mind, the human animal was not made to know what the opinions of everybody else are at any given time. And we're having this kind of like global, like nervous system freak out. And honestly, the LLMs are not going to help that unless maybe they do. I won't rule out that possibility. Um, but I think that's where I come down with it.
Bill, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and I've learned so much. Learned so much.
I hope things you wanted to learn, but thanks,
It,
Adrian. Nice chatting.
definitely, definitely. Thank you. Where can people go to find out more about your firm?
So the best place to find out about us is our website, beutlerink.com, BeutlerInk. I wish I'd chosen an easier to spell company name or last name, but there you go, beutlerink.com. We are on TikTok. We are on LinkedIn. We are kind of barely on Facebook, and we are on Instagram, and we're not on X. We rolled up our Twitter account some time ago. Those are the best places to find us. But really, on our website, come have a look at our wiki resource library. It's a thing that we've been building over the last year. We just actually recently rolled out a much expanded FAQ covering all kinds of topics about, like what's the deal with paid editing on Wikipedia, and how do I upload a logo for my company's site? It's the kind of thing that, like, it's too small to be a project for us, but if people are going to do it themselves, I'd love for them to learn from us. So if you want to go change the logo on your company Wikipedia page, come to beutlerink.com and find our page in the resource library.
That sounds like a fantastic resource for our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adrian.